I'm in the middle of totting up what my Norway and Sweden road trip cost me. Spoiler, it's not cheap. But I realised that there are several things that I do on almost every road trip which can help make your adventure a lot less expensive. So if you're road tripping on a budget or just want to travel for longer without making it really expensive, this video is for you. It's full of tips that I've learned, things that I do to help make the most of your finances without getting rid of all the fun stuff. Well, stick around to the end because I'll tell you how you can get even more tips for free. So let's dive right into tip number 1. Tip number 1, one of the easiest ways that you can save money when you're road tripping is to cook in your own motorhome or your camper van. If you buy food at local supermarkets, especially if you can find cheaper local supermarkets, and then cook in your own vehicle, you'll find things a heck of a lot cheaper. Having said that, I like eating out as much as the next person. It's a little bit of a treat when you're on holiday, and I love trying local dishes, local beers, whatever they've got going. It's part of the fun of traveling somewhere new for me. So if you do want to do that, try and find places where if you do go and have a meal there, they'll let you stay in their car park for free. And I find that's a really good offset between paying for a campsite and then having a meal out. And especially somewhere like the UK where finding airs or finding cheap places or free places to stay overnight isn't always that easy. If you can have a meal at a pub or a meal at a local restaurant, or even do your shopping at a farm shop, something like that, you can then find you can get a free place to stay overnight rather than paying £30–40 for a campsite. So that kind of offsets it all. But yeah, if you can't do that, or you don't want to do that, or you're traveling for a really long time, try not to eat out every night and you will find you save so much money in your budget. Which brings me nicely on to tip number 2, which is to find free or cheaper places to stay overnight. Now, these can be places, like I just said, where if you paid to stay in a pub car park or something like that, or you paid for a meal, you can then stay in that car park for free. Same applies for places like farm shops. Often sports centres will either let you stay for free if you then pay to use their facilities, or some of them have now got a provision where they will charge you to stay overnight and then you get access to their showers and things like that. So that's really good. Lots of sports clubs, centres, places like that are doing that. You can get places like in Scotland, the Forestry Commission. They have some site where you can stay for free just for one night. It's not a week-long stay, but you can then stay there for free for the night and then move on again. Now, obviously, if you do stay somewhere for free, you've got to treat it with respect. You've got to make sure you're not causing any noise, causing any damage, leave no trace, all of that stuff. But you can find places which are either free or very cheap. Now, the apps that I use to find these are Search for Sites in the UK, Park for Night in Europe. You can also use things like Britstops. And one of the biggest advantages for me for being a member of the Caravan and Motorhome Club is you get access to all of the network of their smaller CL sites. And they are really useful because they're often small sites. They've got very limited facilities, most of them, although often you can get things like electric hookup and you might even be able to get a tap to get fresh water. But you're talking things like £10 or £15 a night rather than £30 or £40 a night. So they can make your trip a lot cheaper. Tip number 3 is to use things like these discount clubs and memberships. Now, I've mentioned the Caravan and Motorhome Club. They actually give you then a discount as a member on all their campsites. So instead of paying £40 or £50 for the night, you'll pay £30 or £40 depending on the season. Sometimes it can even be as low as £22 was what I paid recently at a Caravan and Motorhome Club site because I was a member. Other clubs that are worth being part of, ACSI, especially the camping card. If you're going to be touring around your out of peak season, you can save huge amounts of money on their campsites by using ACSI sites, and they've got a fantastic app which lets you see where the campsites are, and sometimes you can even book through that app as well. The biggest trick with ACSI is remembering to take your card in and show them the card. I cannot tell you how many times I've forgotten to do that, and they don't, of course, apply the discount until you've shown the card. So do remember to do that if you paid for the membership. And then, of course, there are clubs or memberships for things like Britstops, where you can then see the range of pubs and other places which have agreed to let people stay for free if they then make use of the services of the place that they are staying at. So that's well worth looking at. You can also do things, of course, like being a member of Tesco, the club card. You can then use club card points to pay for things like your travel costs. You can use the points to make those a lot cheaper. So there's lots of little things that you can do. And of course, some clubs will give you deals and discount on being a member for things that you're going to need anyway. Tip number 4, travel outside of peak season. Now, I know this isn't possible for everybody, but if you can arrange your road trips to be outside the main school holidays and don't travel on the weekends, you will find it a lot cheaper, not just in terms of the actual traveling costs, but the attractions are generally cheaper outside of peak periods. Campsites are generally cheaper outside of those periods, and you'll be able to enjoy your road trip without so many crowds around you. If you have to travel in peak periods, and I do remember what that was like and I sympathise with you, then there are ways of making it a little bit cheaper. For example, you could travel outside of the peak times. So if you travel either very early in the morning or late at night, you'll have fewer traffic jams, you'll be able to pick your better route because it won't be so crowded so much, and you can often then choose things like the quickest route or the cheapest route on the tolls, and you won't have to worry about things like traffic jams. So that can make things a little bit cheaper if you do have to travel in the peak periods. Tip number 5, plan your fuel stops. Now, fuel can vary massively along a route, and we all know that motorway service stations are generally the most expensive places you can buy your fuel. So with a little bit of planning and foresight, you can actually save a lot of money, especially over a long trip. All those different fuel stops will add up a lot of savings if you can make them a penny or two cheaper every time. Now, my sat-nav, my TomTom actually has got fuel stops prices on them, but there's also a brilliant app called Petrol Prices. It's an app, and I think you can get it on the website as well, and you can look at that along your route or around the area that you're going to be staying in, and it will show you what the different petrol prices are. It could be as much as 5p a litre difference, which is a huge amount. So that will really help you be able to plan out where you're going to stop and get fuel and save as much money as possible. Whilst we're talking about fuel, another thing that you can do is using the most direct route, so the shortest route. Of course, the less time you're driving, the less fuel you're going to be using. So that will help as well. Tip number 6 is to take advantage of free Wi-Fi. Now, I use a lot of data when I am traveling, whether that is updating my travel plan so that everyone can see where I'm at, whether that's doing live calls in my membership club, whether that is uploading or downloading videos that I want to watch. I use a lot of data. So one thing that I try to do, especially with the big stuff, so things like uploading videos to YouTube or downloading videos that I want to watch in my apps like Amazon Prime or Netflix, something like that, I tend to use those as much as I can using free Wi-Fi. McDonald's is fantastic for this. Everywhere I've been, every McDonald's, their Wi-Fi has been pretty good. So I tend to have the videos ready to go, and then I will either sit in the car park or park as close as I can, because you can't always get a motorhome into every McDonald's car park, and then either take my laptop into the McDonald's, or I'll sit in the car park and either upload it or download it, and then I'll go get myself something nice to eat as well. But there are other places that you can do this. So cafes, some restaurants, if you're going to eat out, you can always take your laptop with you and use their Wi-Fi whilst you're doing that, make things a little bit cheaper. But you can also use campsite Wi-Fi. Now, campsite Wi-Fi can be hit and miss, so I wouldn't always rely on having that. Having said that, I've recently just upgraded to the Starlink, which has been fantastic. It was so good around Sweden and Norway, and that made things really, really easy in terms of uploading and downloading stuff. So if you are going to do a lot of traveling and you need to work from your vehicle, that might be worth investing in. It was really useful for me. Tip number 7 is to limit your time on toll roads. Now, when I drove up to Nordkapp, I very deliberately drove up through Sweden because there aren't any toll roads. So I got all the way up to Nordkapp, and in fact, a little bit of the way back down through Norway before I had to pay for a single toll. Obviously, I had to pay for the ferry to get from Germany to the bottom of Sweden. But once I was in Sweden, all the way up, and then I think my first toll was a ferry, and that was south of Tromsø. So all of that route, I didn't pay for a single toll. So that's something that you can really do. The less time you spend on toll roads, the less fees you're going to pay. Now, I use a brilliant website called Via Michelin. It's just had a massive redesign, actually. We did this on our last membership call, and we were all looking at that, and someone was like, oh, that's changed. I was like, oh yeah, that's all changed. It's had a massive redesign, which was really good. But you can put in the point between where you want to go to, and it will show you the fastest route, it will show you the cheapest route, it will show you roughly what the toll costs or the vignette costs are going to cost you. If you're having to drive through somewhere like Switzerland, it will show you what the charges will be. So that's really worth looking at, so you can see the trade-off between the fastest and the cheapest. So those are 7 ways to save money on your road trip. If you want more tips for road trips, join my free workshop where I'm talking you through my entire road trip planning process, plus tips on how to make it easier, how to avoid fights with your partner if you don't know where you want to go, how to find campsites, how to choose a route. All of that good stuff will be in the free workshop. I will leave all the details below for you, and if you find that it's already been and gone, there will be a link there for you to be able to get access to the replay. You'll also love my next video about 3 huge mistakes that a lot of people make when planning their road trip. I will leave that here when it is live, and if it's not live yet, then by all means click subscribe to make sure you're notified when it does go live. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.